According to USA Today, from California to Wisconsin to Virginia to Arizona, more than 36 states will choose governors who are going to be at the front lines of a divided nation amid Trump's controversial upheaval in Washington that has touched various economic, cultural, and institutional nerves since January. Whether that's absorbing the fallout from the One Big Beautiful Bill and its changes to Medicaid or other assistance programs, resisting or assisting the Trump administration expanding immigration crackdown that has been tense, sometimes violent clashes in the streets, or dealing with the massive federal worker layoffs. Here are the governor races worth watching and why. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric Caville, and you're joining us for our community conversation about the vote 2025. As always, we want to thank you for joining us, as you always do, on this beautiful Sunday morning that we're enjoying here in Hampton Roads, and hopefully you're enjoying it where you are and where you are listening to us. I also like to give a shout out to all that are listening from the Spartan Nation and our new Spartans. Welcome to the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, where I'm broadcasting from none other than WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. You know, it's that time again. School is coming back and colleges are enrolling and having students come on to campus. I know here at Norfolk State University, we have students who have moved in just on yesterday. So we had a great opportunity for students to move in and welcome them to campus, and administrators and faculty and student affairs and student organizations all help to move in the future Spartans that will kick off their collegiate career and start their futures here where we see the future in you. So again, welcome, new Spartans. And that's right, parents, it's going to be okay. We've got two boys in college and it was hard to see them off, but it's going to be all right. We've done our part. Now we got to continue to support our children, ensure that they make it across this next step to begin their lives, to make an impact in the world, in their chosen field, and in their purpose and their calling that God has for them. Again, we'd like to thank you for joining us for our community conversation series. Today I want to talk about the vote 2025 and just have a community conversation with all of our listeners out there who are listening to us here on Stay the Water. Now, we've been fortunate enough to broadcast, and I've been fortunate enough to do this show from its inception and creation of it since 2020. So we've been doing this for a half a decade now. And it's amazing that we are still broadcasting and still have the interest of you, the community. And thank you for making us the show that you have made us, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues that are very important to the community. And what issue is more important than your vote? Across the country, we've seen waves and changes with policies coming out of Washington and giving powers back to the states and state legislators that really don't have the best interests of everybody in mind or at heart. And they're just doing what they want to do in order to secure, things for a smaller group of people as opposed to the collective. And we've seen the world actually kind of go back and forth of whether the United States is that country that it was professed to be. But, with ebbs and flows, we have one factor that changes everything in this country, and that is our ability to go out and vote. And when we talk about the vote here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we've got an opportunity, as always, to vote. Yes, we vote. We vote a lot. We vote every year because there's a very important election every year. And sometimes it can be a little weary. But if we don't get out there and vote, if we don't stay engaged, we can get policies and things that are happening to us that we probably don't want to happen. But before we're going to look at Virginia in the second part of the show. But I want to take a look at the landscape across the board, across this country. Again, USA Today says, forget who controls Congress. We have to consider how the nation's gubernatorial election cycle over the next 16 months will be full of significant implications for our country's political future. Now, think about this. There will be at least 9 tightly contested elections, starting with New Jersey and Virginia this fall in November, that will either strengthen or weaken the current president's agenda, or show if the Democratic Party has gotten its groove back with the voters, according to USA Today. Now, when we talk about non-contested gubernatorial elections, again, we're looking at elections from California, Wisconsin, Arizona. We already mentioned Virginia and also New Jersey. And these states are some of the lightning rods and some of the major states in our union that actually push this policy, right? These are some of the major states that, whether you win these states or not determines if you win the election for president of the United States. So these 9 tightly contested races in the next 16 months they're not just any election, but these are major elections for our country and the future of it. Keep in mind that even though the Trump administration, they're moving fast, and when they've got the power, and they've got the power of Congress and the White House and the Supreme Court, they're moving fast to change policy. But it's only about 2 years for an opportunity for Congress to change over to the opposing party, the Democrats, in order to contest policies that are coming out of the White House. And then after that, you have 2 more years to change the entire White House itself as relates to the party affiliation from Republican or what's called MAGA to Democratic or liberal. So it's a short time, but the implication of the time, the massive changes that will take place are extremely important. Now, according to USA Today, both parties are hoping to flip, governor's mansions in the odd year races here in Virginia and New Jersey, which are leaning slightly Democratic in favor. Now, this is according to Sabato's Crystal Ball and the Cook Political Report, which forecasts elections. And again, of course, Professor Sabato at UVA and the Cook Political Report, they've been around a long time. But here, we also stay tuned today, because at 12:30, we also, on the Cleaver Report, we also forecast elections. We also talk about these very important issues that are affecting us. So our election series is coming up very soon. Stay tuned for that. But in Virginia, according to USA Today, where Republican incumbent Glenn Youngkin is term limited, the reports underscore the GOP is a bit nervous about now what's considered Lieutenant Governor with some serious chance, giving her lack of fundraising, internal campaign issues that they believe are plaguing here in Virginia. And like I said, we're going to get into Virginia a little bit more in depth in the second part of the show. But what we're looking at now is that what the factors that are going to be the turning point for these houses of governors, these executive houses in these independent states, from California to Wisconsin to Virginia to Arizona to New Jersey, and what is going to be the impact. First, let's start with what we're looking at as it relates to federal workers. Now, when we take a look at federal workers, the Trump administration, according to USA Today, cut federal workers' workforce in Virginia and across the board. Now, Virginia is home to about 152,000 federal workers. Now, we're talking about workers who are on the payroll of the federal government. Now, we're not talking about companies or organizations or small businesses or contractors that are connected to federal agencies, which are in part federal workers as well. So just because you're cutting federal workers, when you're cutting more than just individuals who are classified as civil service, but you're cutting also individuals that help to support those agencies as well. And then not just that, but you're also impacting the housing situation. You're also impacting the ability of families to buy. You're impacting the sandwich shop. You're impacting the coffee shop. You're impacting the grocery store. So when you make these cuts, the way that they're being made, you're impacting an entire community itself. Again, when we take a look at what is happening, according to the Rutgers Eagleton poll released July 2nd, it showed that there is a high enthusiasm for both candidates when we talk about various candidates that are running for office in other states. However, in New Jersey, this is what we're talking about here. However, these factors of what's happening in the White House are going to be impactful across the board. I want to mention a couple others before we delve into Virginia and how you can vote. Some very important dates we're going to get into, some very important races that are coming up, because it's just not the governor's race, but many other races. But we're also going to talk about dates of when you can register to vote, when does early voting starts, when does voting end, how you can make your impact on this particular election landscape. But let's take a look, one of several issues that are going to impact these races across the board. Number one, the One Big Beautiful Bill. This was the reconciliation bill that we talked about, which is basically a budget bill that was passed by Congress. And many believe, including in the Republican Party, believe that it wasn't done the right way, even though they voted for it. Each house was asking the other house, please help us because we should not have done this or done that. Well, one thing about being a member of Congress, it's only 435 total, is that you represent a significant amount of people, and you are also a small part of this greater country of almost 80 million people in our country, to where you have a say-so. No legislator should ask another legislator to help them out when you had the opportunity to help yourself. Now, we understand politics. I get it. But when you have the opportunity to stand up and vote a certain way, you should, by the people who put you there, take that stand and vote. However, many Republicans did not do that. So the Big Beautiful Bill, or the Reconciliation Budget Bill, it changes Medicaid program and assistance programs, such as not just Medicaid, but also funding for Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which affects this station. It impacts food for various school programs. It impacts many social programs across the board, because we have about $1.2 trillion that we're looking at that was cut from from healthcare and other services in order to help our society. In addition to that, we also have changes in our federal student loan program, which individuals believe are draconian and will make a major negative impact upon the budgets of individuals who are going to school and trying to pay for their student loans, in which they actually receive from the federal government as an investment. Keep in mind, education itself, education is an investment in our country, because a more educated society is a better society across the board. A more educated society is a more enlightened society. A more educated society means that we have less poverty. We have less medical issues because individuals are more educated about how to take care of themselves. Individuals are educated about they can get better paying jobs in order to help them afford health care insurance in order to go to the doctor. Again, an educated society is a better society as a whole. But when we make cuts in those areas, we are now impacting our society as a whole. But what do we do and where do we go from here? Also, the immigration crackdown. We see now there was, in theory, the ICE agents and the ICE program under the Trump administration were supposed to go after what they call criminals and individuals who were breaking the law or here illegally. But we've seen over and over again individuals who are innocent, individuals their families are put in danger, and also aggressive tactics by ICE agents, to where even if individuals complain, they find little to no action being taken against these individuals who are using force that is considered by many to be excessive. We've seen the violent clashes amongst protesters in the streets of California, and if this continues, we could probably see it across other states as well. So the other issue we find once again, are not the massive federal layoffs, but also the closing of various agencies and the cutback of federal funds. All of these factors that we see up front. Now, we're not talking about other policy changes that are happening through the Department of Health and Human Services. We're not talking about those changes. We're not talking about other changes that we're seeing that are not being talked about. But we're talking about the ones that we do see. Cuts in social programs, the aggressiveness of ICE agents and immigration crackdown, and also the laying off of federal workers and the cutback of federal funding from various agencies for others who are connected, such as contractors and the like, These are going to be factors in the upcoming elections that we currently will see here in New Jersey, in Virginia, then in California, Wisconsin, Arizona, and several other states in the next 16 months. We're also looking at Pennsylvania, looking at Florida, looking at a lot of these states now where Nevada, also Michigan, and Georgia. These are states where you have incumbents that are trying to hold the line and others who are presidential hopefuls, such as DeSantis and also on the Republican side, and also Shapiro on the Democratic side, the governor of Pennsylvania, and then DeSantis, outgoing governor of Florida, respectively. These individuals are going to try to hold their offices and hold the line and continue to remain relevant. So there's a lot at stake that we see moving forward in the next 16 months. So the question becomes, what can you do and what should you do? And is voting necessary? Should we vote, or should we just allow individuals to do and the government to do as they want? Well, the answer is, of course, you should, and we'll find out why in just a moment, because it's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric LaVille, and you're joining us for our Community Conversation series where we're discussing the vote 2025. According to USA Today, we have in the next 16 months, we have 9 tightly contested gubernatorial races that will show whether there is support for the federal agenda coming out of the Trump administration and the Republican Congress, or whether Democrats will gain favor with voters and voters will be energized to come out and vote against or for these policies. Starting right now in 2025, there are 2 elections in this country that are going to be major. New Jersey, but the most important is Virginia. That's right. Here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, as Virginia goes, so does the rest of the country. With that being the case, we know that here in Virginia, under the Governor Northam's administration and the Democratic-controlled House and Senate, voting was expanded. Access to voting was expanded to allow more citizens to vote, to allow more citizens to come and participate in the civics of our country. In other words, the way that our country was set up is that one man, one woman, one vote. You have the opportunity to make your voice heard. And by giving more individuals the opportunity to operate in their duties as a voter, as a citizen of this country, then we are better for it because we have more voices being heard to speak more broadly about what we would like to see in our nation and how we want our representatives to vote. So according to the Department of Elections here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, right now on November 4th, the general election for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and every seat in the Virginia House of Delegates, which is 100, and some local offices will be up for election this November 4th. That's right. This November 4th, we see right now where we will elect a new governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and we will also have a say on who we send back or who we send to the House of Delegates in January. So make sure that you are also looking at your local elections to determine who's on the ballot or what's on the ballot to vote for. Now, when can you register to vote? You can register to vote right now. You can also update your voter registration right now, all the way up to, that's right, October 24th. October 24th. Once again, October 24th is the time period that you can register to vote. But you don't have to wait till October 24th to do it because you don't want to rush. But you can start right now. Go and register to vote. Take your friends. Take your family members. If you are 18, turning 18, you can register to vote. Go to your local registrar's office and register to vote. Now, when you register to vote, that means you can participate in what's called early voting. This is the expansion of voting that took place under the Northam administration. Now, in-person early voting starts in 40 days. That's right, September 19th. next month on the 19th, you can vote early. Now, voting early is a very good thing because guess what? Anything can happen on election day. You know, persons can get in accidents, persons can, hopefully not. Anything can happen, traffic, let's just say life happens, right? Life happens. So make sure you get out and early vote. And again, you can vote at your voter registration's office or voter's office in your locality. And of course, there's also voting that's expanded on Saturday as well. And then souls to the polls, where individuals are able to vote on the weekend. So look out for that. But guess what? You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait till the end of October. You don't have to wait till that time period. You can vote now. I mean, you can register now and start voting early September 19th. So in 40 days, you can start to vote. Now, early voting starts September 19th, and it goes all the way through November 1st. That's right, November 1st. 3 days before the actual election. So you got a lot of time. You got 45 days to the actual election to vote, and you got 40 days until early voting starts. So right now we're what we call the middle. We're in the middle of all this. So get ready and have your plan ready. And if you want to apply for a ballot to be mailed to you, you also have through October 24th as well, if you would like to apply for a ballot to be sent to you to vote by mail. So once again, early voting starts Friday, September 19th through Saturday, November 1st, 2025. And voter registration offices will be open for early voting on Saturday, October 25th, 2025. And to apply for a ballot to be mailed to you, you can do so by Friday, October 24th. You can do that. Now, when we talk about the election, let's take a look at Virginia. As I said before, as Virginia goes, so does the rest of the nation. And because the rest of the nation follows Virginia, Virginia itself is being the suburbs of Washington, D.C., what happens in D.C. is affected. It's touched by Virginia. Northern Virginia itself, it's one of our great regions, not just of the Commonwealth, but also of the country. It is definitely a place that is feeling the impact of what's happening in Washington with the federal cuts. In addition to that, the Hampton Roads region, in part, our economy is one of the major military installations here in the country. Of course, we have the largest amount of retirees here in this region. We have the largest shipbuilding company here in this region, a headquarter here. We also have every installation, every branch of the military that has an installation here in this region. So, and we have the largest naval base in the world here in the great city of Norfolk, where Norfolk State is located. So we're impacted, right? But what we find, according to The Hill, just on last week, on Wednesday, an article came out that said Spanberger leads Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears in Virginia. Former Virginia Representative Abigail Spanberger, which is the Democratic candidate, is leading Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears Republicans in the state's gubernatorial race. Right now, it shows that Spanberger leads with an average of 45.2% support, while Lieutenant Governor trails with an average of 36% support. Now, these averages pretty much remain unchanged. It's been pretty much the same since that time period of last month. Now, there's a recent poll of the governor's race that was released by the Wilder School of Government and Public Affairs at VCU. It showed Spanberger leading with 49%, and leading the lieutenant governor only has 37%. And this is amongst registered voters. Now, according to Decision Desk headquarters and also the nonpartisan Cook Political Report, it shows that the rates of the race lean as Democratic. Now, it also shows that Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears has not led in a single poll this entire year. Now, with this, according to The Hill, Virginia Republicans have raised red flags about their chances in the state's gubernatorial race. And they point to Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears significantly trailing Spanberger in fundraising and also the polls. Now, of course, last month, Spanberger reported second quarter fundraising of $10.7 million. And, of course, Earl Sears' campaign announced Thursday its best single fundraising day since its launch in September, but did not publicly disclose how much it has raised. But according to VPAP, which is Virginia Public Access Project, Spanberger has raised $27 million since she jumped in the race in 2023 and has more than $15 million in the bank, while Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears has raised more than $11 million since launching and has about $4 million cash on hand. So according to The Hill right now, from a fundraising standpoint, former Congresswoman Spanberger now has about 3 times more cash on hand than her challenger, the current lieutenant governor, and almost about 3 times, but a little bit under, about, I would say 1.5 times the amount of money that's been raised in the campaign itself. Now, we know that we find that once again, money isn't everything because we have our ability to vote. And with that being the case, we find money is significant, but we also find that the ability to vote, meaning getting your voters galvanized to get out to vote, changes the entire game. So also, according to The Hill, on last week, Wednesday, same day, it noted that the Governor Youngkin and the GOP groups launched a 7-figure investment in Virginia. The Republican State Leadership Committee, PAC, and the Republican Attorney General's Association teamed up with Virginia's Governor, Glenn Youngkin's Secure Your Vote initiative to launch a 7-figure investment to turn out voters on Wednesday ahead of the state's off-year elections in November. Now, the investment will include direct mail, digital outreach, grassroots efforts to support the incumbent state AG, our Attorney General, Jason Miyares, and Republicans running in House delegate races. Now, what they're saying is that we can't afford to fall behind before Election Day, so they're excited to commit it for this. And for the entire GOP ticket, Secure Your Vote Virginia is key to winning not just in 2025, but for the long haul, according to our current governor. However, many Virginians argue that Miyares is the strongest part of the ticket. However, polls show Virginia's ticket trailing the Democrats. A poll released once again by the Wilder School of Government Public Affairs at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, showed once again the 49-37 lead in the gubernatorial race. But in the lieutenant governor's race, it showed that State Senator Hashmi, Democrat, leads conservative talk show host John Reed, 46 to 36%. Again, a closer margin. And then the Attorney General's race, which is Delegate Jay Jones, is the Democratic candidate, leading Miyares by 9 percentage points at 47 to 38%. So as we go further down the ticket, we find that these races do get a little tighter. However, we do know that the top of the ticket tends to swing races more so than not. But also The Hill, according to The Hill, on Thursday last week, it showed that Jay Jones launched his first general election ad buy in the Virginia AG's race. It showed that he launched a 6-figure ad buy up across Virginia, and with 30-second spots featuring Norfolk, Virginia Sheriff, Prince William County Prosecutor, and Newport News Sheriff, good Capper brother Gabe Morgan, who is vouching for Delegate Jones' record on public safety, the law and order from time his as Assistant General, and a former state delegate as well. Now, with this does show, according to Virginia Public Access Project, Miyares has raised over $4,000 more than Jones in fundraising. So when we talk about the investment in getting the vote out, money makes a difference, and we're seeing the money move in very fast. But ultimately, the only way that these elections will matter is if you get out and vote. So make sure you exercise your right to vote. Make sure that you and your family have your voice heard, because it's not only your duty, but it's a right and a privilege, because this is your country. This is our country, our great country, these United States of America. Once again, we want to thank you for joining us for our Community Conversation Series 2025, The Vote, here on Stay the Water. Until next time, be good, be great, God bless. Welcome, new Spartans, to Sparta. We'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Claville.